You know, the only other adversary of ours who's anywhere near as good as the Russians is China. So why should Russia have all the fun? And since Russia is clearly backing Republicans, why don't we ask China to back us?
I hereby tonight ask China.
That's right. And not only that, China, if you're listening, why don't you get Trump's tax returns? I'm sure our media would richly reward you.
So let me get this straight. In 2016, when Donald Trump won the election and became the president, well, it was Russian collusion. We had the whole Russia, which pretty much the evidence points to the fact that it was a hoax. It was put on by Barack Obama and Hilary Clinton. So for years, we had to listen to the news media, the liberal news media, go on and on about how Donald Trump stole the election and how he was playing president. He was the illegitimate president because Russia jumped in. I don't know how they claimed that it happened, but they said that Russia helped him to steal the election. Now, we fast forward to the year 2020, and we had Joe Biden winning the presidency when he got 1 out of 39 critical swing counties. So the night of the election, we had Donald Trump winning. And then the next day, after they got to count all of these mail-in ballots, well, suddenly there was a miracle. Well, Joe Biden took all of the swing states and flipped all of the swing counties after the mail-in ballots were done. So, of course, Biden wins. And then we had the infamous January 6th situation. And what did the news media do? They came up with a new term. Anyone who says that there was cheating in the 2020 election, well, you got this new label pasted to your forehead, and that was called election denier. So you could not say that there was cheating going on in the 2020 election because now elections are sacred, and we had the safest election in the history of the United States, per the Democrats. Okay, that was straight out of the mouth of Joe Biden and the liberal news media. Safest election we've ever had. There's no way anybody can cheat. And if you dare say that the election was thrown, you're an election denier and you're discredited. Now you're an outcast. And they held that over everybody's head. Anytime that any representative or senator or politician or Donald Trump would claim that there was cheating in the 2020 election, we'd slap that label on, call you an election denier, and say that you're a conspiracy theorist, you're crazy. And, well, of course, we have the safest election in history, right? Now, besides the fact that there were 11 million additional votes that popped up in the 2020 election that nobody can explain. So in other words, when you add up all of the votes in 2016, 2020, and 2024, 2020 was the peak. And there's 11 million votes that appeared and then suddenly disappeared. But you're not supposed to talk about that. Nothing went on in Pennsylvania. Nothing went on in Arizona. And, well, just turn the other cheek. Nothing was happening down there in Fulton County when the race was so tight and Georgia could have flipped it for Trump, and all of a sudden water pipes broke and the building was evacuated, and then they came back and all of a sudden Joe Biden had won Georgia. And of course, when Trump said we need to find 11,000 votes, well, that was accusing him of cheating, hence election denier mode. And then, of course, they tried to prosecute him for that. And Fannie Pack Willis, well, we know how all of that ended up. Well, now we fast forward to today and the 2024 election. Of course, Donald Trump wins. And then we still have the whole election denier moniker being put on everyone. We saw in the congressional hearings, who was it? Were they doing a confirmation hearing? I don't know if it was for Attorney General or maybe it was for the replacement for the Department of National Security, the DNI director, and the person that was on the stand. They said, did Trump win the 2020 election or did he fail? He wouldn't answer the question. Of course, they were saying, well, you can't be nominated because you're an election denier, right? Because we have the safest and most secure elections in history. Well, you saw the video in the beginning, and there's another video that I'm going to show you that is quite ridiculous. It's even more ridiculous than that. Now, of course, people are going to say, well, Hillary was that was tongue in cheek. She was just being sarcastic, right? So if she was just playing around and being sarcastic, then how do you explain what happened with the presidential address that took place on Thursday night when Donald Trump stated that we have hard evidence that China was interfering in the 2020 election? That's strange. So before it was, okay, Russia meddled in the election. It is possible they cheated. We had an illegitimate president and elections are not secure. In 2020, well, all of a sudden, elections are secure, 100%, safest in history, right? So if they are safest in history, then why did ABC and CNN and all of the liberal news network decide that they could not air the broadcast of President Donald Trump presenting evidence that China colluded and was involved in electioneering and monkeying around with our voter database and producing false driver's licenses and manufacturing mail-in voter ballots? So why did they have to cover that up? Why did they not allow him to speak that if we had the safest election ever? So it was okay in 2016 for you to say that some other nefarious country can throw an election. The Russians did it. It's possible. They cheated. We had an illegitimate president. And then 4 years later, if you dare say that anyone could collude and cheat and throw an election, well, now you're an election denier because they're, of course, so safe. And now, after Hillary makes these tongue-in-cheek comments about, yeah, we're going to reach out to China and we're going to cheat with China helping us out since Trump apparently cheated with Russia, okay? That's all tongue-in-cheek. So if she was just kidding, then why did the news networks not air Donald Trump's speech when he showed evidence that Hilary Clinton's remarks were not tongue-in-cheek, that there was actual collusion and interference on behalf of the CCP? How do you answer that? Can any of you bedwetting liberal Democrats answer that question? And also, let me cut you off at the pass. I'm going to cut you off at the pass, at the pass. I'm going to stop you right now. If you are a bedwetting plantation black Democrat who thinks that black people can only vote for Democrats, that black people are defined by only being Democrats, that we're not independent thinkers, we can't think for ourselves, and that we can't go against the one most corrupt political party in the history of the world, right? I'm going to cut you off right now before you have the nerve to say, oh, you sound like a sellout. Oh, he's just an Uncle Tom. Yeah, he's cooning up there. That guy, he's just cooning. Before you can even say that, I'm cutting you off right now. Save your breath in the comments because I am a free black man. Slavery ended in 1865. Forget the fact that back during that time, blacks were aligned with the Republican Party. But take the party hats off. Take them off. Take off your blue hat. Take off your red hat. Can you stand on principle and your values and stick with them and admit that the Democratic Party has flip-flopped over time where the values they had in the past, the things that they stated, their beliefs, their principles, their politics, sounded like they came right out of the mouth of Donald Trump and MAGA itself? Can you explain to me? So you would rather stick with a party that switches values and then call names to independently minded black people who are not stuck on the plantation, still in chains and still afraid that Massa, boy, he gonna whip us if we ever step off this plantation and go against him because we can't think for ourselves. Think about that for a minute before you run your mouth in the comments and tell me that I'm a coon, that I'm cooning and I sound like a sellout. Now, funny that I'm a sellout, but I only make about 5 cents for these videos. Nobody's sending me checks. I'm standing on the same principles I had 30 years ago. So how am I selling out? The same principles that I had when I voted for Democrats, mainly, way back when, are still in my heart now. I still hold fast to them. But those same principles don't align with the Democratic Party, so they don't get my vote. So how am I the sellout? But let's digress. Let me digress. Let's get back to the conversation at hand and allow you, liberal Democrats, to explain to me what I just saw in the introduction being vomited out of Hilary Clinton's mouth, where she said it's time for us to collude with the Chinese so we can cheat in an election. Post your comments below and then explain it away. Give me all of your excuses of why we can't listen to Donald Trump presenting hard evidence and stating that you guys cheated in the 2020 election. There's going to be so much more of this that is going to come out. And I'm going to be saying, I told you so the entire way. So, as usual, you can like, subscribe, and hype and all that, and I don't care because I'm not doing this for the YouTube lottery anymore. I am just stating my opinion, and we're going to keep the discussions going with the real ones that are always here, and I'll call this a success if the video gets 100 views. We're just going to build from this point and keep it moving forward. I still got that video with the 5 points that proves to you people, Democrats, that your Democratic Party is just a bunch of thieves, just a bunch of folks who like to steal. You're the most corrupt party in the history of the United States, and I'll lay all that out for you because you Democrats don't care about fraud. That's all for now. This is Carlton, and I am out.